The Burial is inspired by a true story, and when I say it's inspired, it is definitely inspired. It tells the story of a man named Jeremiah O'Keefe who owns some funeral homes and a funeral insurance company in Mississippi. The writers of this film, Doug Wright and Maggie Betts, based this off of an article that was written in 1991 called The Burial by Jonathan Harr. It tells the story about O'Keefe meeting a man named Ray Lowen. Lowen is a businessman based in Canada who owned a company called the Lowen Group, and he was purchasing funeral homes in Mississippi. He ended up purchasing a funeral home that had a contract with O'Keefe to sell his funeral insurance policies. But once Lowen ended up purchasing said funeral home, they ended up selling Lowen's insurance policies instead, and O'Keefe felt like that was a breach of contract. O'Keefe ended up suing Lowen, and then Lowen brought O'Keefe to his yacht, which this is where the stories come together. In the movie, if I remember correctly, O'Keefe is in debt, and he doesn't want to sell his family business that he built from the ground up, but he has no choice because he has to make ends meet and he wants to leave something behind for his family. And his attorney or his lawyer ends up suggesting Ray Lowen. And the deal was if Lowen ended up purchasing O'Keefe's funeral home, then Lowen could no longer sell funeral insurance policies in Mississippi. He would leave that to O'Keefe. And they shook hands on it. The deal was made. But Lowen ended up not honoring the agreement. Instead, he decided to wait O'Keefe out so he can go bankrupt and then pick up the pieces. So in the article, it states that O'Keefe had already sued Lowen prior to being on the yacht for purchasing the funeral home and selling his own insurance policies and the breach of contract. In the film, it's stated that O'Keefe is in debt and he needs to sell his funeral home to Lowen, and Lowen agrees to purchase it, but he also agrees not to sell insurance policies in Mississippi. So you can see how these two different stories vary. It's very confusing to me. Tommy Lee Jones plays Jeremiah O'Keefe.
I tried to mess with the one thing that means the most to me in life. Being able to leave something behind for my children, my grandchildren, when I go.
As the film progresses and we get to know a bit more about Tommy Lee Jones as his character, and we get to experience what he's going through throughout the film, he starts to smile. He starts to become a bit more happier. So after we have our initial setup with Tommy Lee Jones's O'Keefe, we meet his lawyer slash attorney Mike Alford, who is played by Alan Rook. And I thought Alan Rook gave a phenomenal performance in this film. He was very funny. His character definitely had a little bit of prejudice in him, and I think the director Maggie Betts definitely played up on that aspect of the film tremendously. I think this film handles racial issues in an intelligent way. And with that comes in one of my favorite actors, Mamadou Ati, and I think he is crushing it right now in Hollywood as an actor. His character's name is Hal in this film, and he's constantly butting heads with Alan Rook's character. And up next, we have our main star of the film, Willie Gary, played by the great Jamie Foxx.
Meet Willie Gary.
That's his promotional video. It's Rocky read very large and very loud without an ounce of subtlety.
The Willie Gary case is where I could take that judgment and push it all the way up to the heavens if I need to and get as much money as I can for my client.
I loved how lively Jamie Foxx was in this film, and when I discovered that the real life Willie Gary is just as lively.
Hard work, and more hard work. Refusing to be denied, refusing to let anybody beat us.
And then moving on to the attorney that was hired in the defense of Ray Lowen, played by Bill Camp, we meet Journey Smollett's character, and her character's nickname in this film is The Python. And when I say that this film is inspired, and it's definitely inspired, We look at Journey Smollett's character. In the true story, it wasn't a female that defended Ray Lowen. From what I read in an article online, Maggie Betts decided to gender swap these people because she wanted to modernize the film. From what I understand, Maggie Betts had been sitting on this script for a while. It was floating around in the early 90s after Jonathan Harr's article, and it was going to go to Harrison Ford instead of Tom Lee Jones, but then he didn't end up doing it, and it was going to be directed by Ron Howard amongst other people, but they didn't end up doing it. Then it came back to Maggie Betts, and she didn't want to do it at first, but then she decided to, and I'm glad she decided to do this film because this film is intelligent and dealing with racial issues, and it's also colorful.
How do you feel about working with black folk? I suppose I am a little prejudiced.
Did you meet my team?
I'm Chris. Deshaun. Reggie Douglas. Gentlemen.
And so in conclusion, if you haven't noticed already, I love this film. I think it is phenomenal. It is great. I love it. I love all the performances. I love the director and how she captured everything in this film. I love the story, and I enjoyed the true story behind it and everything. All of this stuff, man. It's beautiful, utter chaos, and I enjoyed it. And a lot of this had me flabbergasted. That's all I have to say.
We're about to go to war. Because that's what I think litigation is. Litigation is war. It's a battle to the death. And I'm not talking about no bullshit either. I'm talking about some Jean-Claude Van Damme ass-kicking shit.